Ask the spirits? No. Ask me. Step aside, demons. The real Antichrist is talking. That's right. Hi, my name is Haunted Hippie, also known as the Antichrist. I am Satan's favorite daughter. Great to meet you. I talk about horror movies here and I have been for a long time, so by all means, stick around. Join my little cult by clicking subscribe, the like button, and the notification bell. That way you never miss the next video. Today, we are talking about The Conjuring Last Rites. If you're new here, in my reviews, I always start with my expectations walking into a movie. Then I get into all my spoiler-free thoughts. Today I'm going to start with the negatives, then work to the positives, give you my final recommendation, and then we'll get into a little bit of a plot breakdown. Usually in the spoiler-free section, I also will let you know kind of what my theater experience was like. With this movie, I had a horror story that unfortunately I am saving for the Patreon episode this Wednesday. I have a podcast with my dad called Boomers, and I just feel like that story should probably be behind a paywall because I almost got into a public altercation. Don't worry, you don't need to think less of me, okay? I said almost. Let's get into my expectations though. Honestly, I have been curmudgeonly as of late. I was not super excited about this installment of the franchise after revisiting the entirety of it. In fact, we did 3 watch-alongs for the previous Conjuring films on this channel. Those live streams are now only accessible to the members and the patrons. I think I'm just really picky with my paranormal stuff, and with The Conjuring, I'm really tired of the hokey business. It worked for me as a teen because of the filmmaking, but I just am not any kind of believer. So as I've gotten older and the more I've rewatched the movies, I just go, oh, this is kind of silly. Especially because they just continually beef up the scares. So I was walking into Last Rites thinking I could probably expect about the same quality as Devil Made Me Do It. Especially because it's also Michael Chavez who gave us La Llorona and gave us The Nun 2. But I was pleasantly surprised to find that Last Rites felt like a slight upgrade to Devil Made Me Do It. And that's gonna sound shocking because I have so many negatives for this movie, okay? I've done a little bit of soul searching, and by the end of this, you can tell me if you think that I just thought that it was so bad that it was good. Blanket statement once again, this kind of horror is just not for me anymore. I really miss how understated the first movie is, and even that one I feel like goes a little bit too far with the entities being these completely solid human forms. I just couldn't help but imagine how much better the tension could be crafted by using a less is more approach, but they were just doing entirely too much. If I have to watch one more of these movies where they try to make dolls scary and things go bump in the dark corner of a room, or heaven forbid, another movie where there's a goddamn rocking chair, or the characters cannot get a door open, I'm gonna blow a gasket, I'm gonna lose it! Yes, it happens in this movie. Both of those, my least favorite tropes of this franchise, happen in this movie. I just rewatched the entire franchise, and I think the Nun movies might be the only movies of the franchise where the characters can operate the doors. Actually, I don't know. In the convent setting of the second movie, I swear that might have happened with the kids. I think they might have gotten trapped in a room at one point. Oh, in Last Rites, there's also a point where a car will not start for the first several tries. Oh my god, you think that you can get away from those kind of cliches because this movie takes place in 1986, so nobody has cell phones, okay? We don't have to worry about them being like, oh my god, I don't have service, but the car will not start, okay? I just cannot believe, like, believe it or not, I got my hopes up a lot in the first hour of this film, only for it to devolve into typical, completely schlocky mess, because it really earnestly felt like we were breaking the mold. I will give credit where it's due that they took The Conjuring in a bit of a different direction in the third movie. It actually felt like a little bit more of an investigation, and then it was very occulty. It was a type of thing, an entity that they had never battled before, a witch. Very different. So I was thinking, wow, they're doing something new yet again. I've really underestimated this movie. We were finally really getting to know their daughter, Judy. There's a lot more family drama, and I'm like, finally, you know, I really did want to get to know the Warrens more. I love spending this time with them. They're really building up to kind of passing the torch. It's breaking free of so many of the traditional Conjuring setups, except of course that the haunted family is a working class family of all daughters and they have a scary basement. I was speaking strictly to the Warrens side of things, okay? Everything else is very typical. I just don't understand how people could still be into that. When you look at a similarly built franchise like Marvel, at least every character has a very different energy. They also, in the first act, built it up like this was the case that ended their career, and I was like, oh, only to be let down, and more on that later in spoilers. But I know exactly what movie I'm walking into, okay? I just hope that all of that kind of provides context for why I am not gonna be this movie's biggest fan. If you like that stuff because it's a Marvel level, formulaic, comfortable thing, you'll probably like the movie more than I did. It's even got super supremely generic Marvel comedy with the most obvious punchlines ever. I feel like someday we're gonna look back on this era of supernatural stuff the way that we kind of look back on slashers. I think some people in more critical circles probably already do, obviously, where it's like, how many scares can we cram in rather than how many bodies? Recently rewatching Jaws in the theater for its 50th re-release. Obviously, a girl can't help but notice just how tactical the jump scares are. There's only maybe like 3 of them, and they feel completely organic and completely earned. Whereas in the Conjuring movies, they feel really just like ham-fisted in there, to the point that it is giving Friday the 13th, but instead of a machete through the head, it's like an empty rocking chair that's moving on its own. And normally I would be okay with that because, again, I know what movie I'm walking into. I like the Ed and Lorraine Conjuring films. In this movie, it's overkill, and they did it to a point that literally made no sense because, like I said, in the first hour or so, they're really developing these characters, particularly Judy, and you want to root for her. It seriously has that human element, and we know on-screen Ed and Lorraine we have for a very long time. We are invested in them, but then they cram in all these scare scenes to the point that you're like, wait, you're so dumb. Why are the characters making the dumbest decisions they possibly could right now? I thought I was supposed to be rooting for them. Like, I thought I was supposed to be getting attached to them, but I can't. I cannot co-sign this behavior. So now I'm having to sit here like a boomer and be like, ugh, I just hate how in horror movies characters make dumb decisions. That's a greater horror than anything in this movie. That just makes me want to like, it's just beyond reason in this film. So while I was watching it, I had to shift my perspective and be like, it's camp. Like, it's fun. It's camp. One thing I cannot excuse, though, is how much Annabelle is in this movie. Leave her in her case to rot. Leave her alone. And yes, that also goes for Matt Rife. I am so tired of that stupid doll and all the hokey ass shit that happens with her in this movie. You actually will not believe. You will not believe. I'll talk about it in spoilers. Also, no family theme? No. The last Ed and Lorraine centered story of the Conjuring universe, and you're not gonna give me their beautiful theme? Doth my ears deceive? Genuinely, did I miss that? I don't think so, because I am really conditioned by like teenage nostalgia, so whenever I hear that score, I cry. And I did not cry in this movie. This movie also will start to take things really far, and at one point it kind of feels like we're getting this Evil Dead-esque turn, and then it just abruptly stops. This movie would walk up to the line, it would tease you about crossing over into total mayhem, and then it just would like flip you off and be like, JK, we're just gonna be following all the basic tropes. Down to some of the dialogue of the original films, to the point that it didn't feel like clever homage. It just felt like straight up rinse and repeat. Mostly because the actors would deliver the lines without that kind of twinkle in their eye to like clue me in as the audience, like, oh, this is a tribute. Lastly, initially I was annoyed that McKenna Grace was not cast as older Judy. I was watching the movie with like all the different time periods we see Judy in, and I was like, this might be a fun trivia question. Which number is higher, the amount of movies in the Conjuring universe or the number of actresses who have played Judy? But you know what? Mia Tomlinson came out of nowhere and was fantastic. Let's shift gears into my positives, because I know that this is kind of turning into a rant. Like I said, I knew what movie I was getting into. I was really, really trying to meet it on its own terms, even if that meant that I was actually doing the opposite of that and being like, it's camp, it's so stupid that I'm having fun. I ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5, okay? I liked it. The score may go down in the future, okay? But anyway, this was only Mia Tomlinson's second film ever, or it's only the second one that she has a credit on Letterboxd. Also, she's British somehow. All of her, she's so good. She has great chemistry with all of her co-stars, I think especially with Vera Farmiga. She has to carry a lot of the weight of this film, the emotional weight, and I think that she delivers one of the best performances of the entire franchise. I'm not gonna hold you. She's the beating heart here, I think even more so than Ed and Lorraine, because this movie was hardcore about family and parenthood, bordering on marriage and baby propaganda, and you know what? Was low-key falling for it. I loved how much time we got to build out with fictional Ed and Lorraine Warren, and yes, that is an important distinction. We get to spend some time with them when they're young and building out some lore, and oh, we're free from the shackles of de-aging. They actually cast younger actors to play Ed and Lorraine instead of giving us like creepy VFX young Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, and thank God for that. I thought particularly the guy who was playing young Ed did a great job emulating Patrick Wilson. The younger actress, she carried a lot emotionally. She was great, but but funnily enough reminded me a lot more of Rose Byrne. And I was like, wrong wife. I enjoyed all the setup of the arc of the family and them kind of having to release Judy in a way and all of them growing up. It doesn't really come around in the best of ways, but I genuinely did think the writing was really good concerning all the dramatic elements. I also enjoyed the small moments we got with the other family, the ones that were being haunted, but it felt like they didn't really get hardly any time at all to be developed. Where I feel like in The Conjuring 2, it's like we get the moments of the kids at school and she gets caught and gets in trouble for smoking a cigarette. In the first movie, you know, there's a whole scene between husband and wife and he's like, I gotta pick up this job, and she's like, oh, do you really, like, how long are you gonna be gone, or whatever it was. Whereas in this movie, they didn't do any of like that kind of more nitty-gritty character building. It just was like, you know, the wife would sit down and she'd be like, we can't afford to leave. It just would be straight up. You didn't get any nuance with their characters, and that was a bummer. Because I liked the actors and I feel like they really could have done something better with them. There was just so much fluff and wasted time on these hokey ass scares, and I'm like, can we get back to the good stuff? There's actually a really good movie here about parenthood and coming of age and perhaps even some metaphors for mental illness, but it's surrounded by oh so much bullshit. Not me starting to complain again, but I swear it's like for every positive that I have, there is a negative. For example, the filmmaking is flawless. Even when there would be blatant VFX to patchwork together some crazy camera move, I could spot the VFX and be like, okay, that's not a real camera move, but like, damn, that still looks cool. I think that Michael Chavez has really upped his eye for dynamic movement. There are some telltale signs of his filmmaking that have always been there. He loves a long tracking shot of people walking through houses, people running through houses. He loves a circular dolly shot around someone's head when they sense something wrong. It felt more finely crafted in this movie as opposed to perhaps an overexcited first-time director being handed a big camera rig. But the negative with that is that it feels like there are so many shots just thrown into the movie haphazardly that were obviously solely for the trailer. Ed and Lorraine finally get to the house of the case, alright, and there is a standalone scene where this is all that happens. Lorraine turns on this little merry-go-round toy, and then we get this very kind of artsy shot of her face up above in the mirror, looking down at it and just watching it slowly spin. Absolutely nothing to do with anything, by the way. That wasn't even connected to another scare or something. It just was literally there. It's a beautiful shot. It looks like it probably would have been really, really satisfying to pull off, but it serves absolutely no purpose at all, and I think that that has always been my biggest problem with Michael Chavez, and why in the past, yes, maybe I have complained a little bit that he has been handed the keys to the Conjuring Kingdom. This may be his least egregious film, but in my eyes, he has always been a style over substance type director. And who knows, with a huge franchise like this, backed by a huge major studio, I don't know who had final cut and all of that. I don't know how much of this is dictated by the studio, but he's been living in the Conjuring franchise for so long, I'm like, you need to go direct your own thing so that I can properly pass judgment on you. It's just crazy that I feel like for the first time with a film that he has directed in this franchise, there actually is a lot of substance and really good setup, and then they still find a way to cram in like 45 minutes of fluff. That's why I'm like, do I like this movie just because it's so bad? That might be the case, and I feel like they are leaning into the hokey stuff, because have you seen the official poster on Letterboxd? What in hell's creation is this? Whereas this was the poster that I was seeing everywhere, and I was getting so hyped up. I was like, wow, what a gorgeous design. And I can't even change the poster on Letterboxd to the better one because I made a joke about it in my review. I swear to God, it literally changed on Letterboxd too the day that the movie released to this AI generated looking abomination. Also, if you didn't know, on Letterboxd, I'm a patron, and so you can go and like choose your own alternate poster for your review for a movie. And I always do that because I feel like generally the alternate posters are better than the marketing ones. No, I liked the movie. I liked it. Even if the demons were super hokey, there was some of the best creature acting I've seen from the entire franchise. Did that creature acting and the ghosties make sense in the grand scheme of this story? Perhaps stick around for the spoiler section to find out. Yeah, this definitely was so bad that it was good for me. I think I've come to that conclusion, but I did like it, and I do think that you should see it. And you never know when you're gonna get this kind of real-time soul searching from the Antichrist. So if you don't want spoilers, seriously go away, but I do hope that you come back after you've seen the movie. Although honestly, things things are so formulaic that I don't really think it'd be possible for me to spoil anything. Now, the opening of this movie is a genuinely heart-pounding sequence, especially because I saw this in the Dolby Cinema, which is my favorite place to be. Dolby Cinema is the happiest place on earth. The opening scene in the mirror, I'm like, this is kind of copying Oculus, don't care. But then she goes into labor, I'm like, okay, action. The car ride is pretty crazy, loved that with the surround sound. And I thought these actors were killing it. I was feeling the stress, I felt like I was feeling the pain, she's screaming. Then the baby is stillborn, and I swear to you, I got choked up. But my tears dried up the second the baby started crying. I just hate miracle propaganda more than just about anything. Here I am like, damn, this movie's really taking it there. You know, did Lorraine have a failed pregnancy that I didn't know about? Are they dropping some crazy lore on the Warrens? Are we actually finally gonna get some real emotional depth to these characters? I'm putting myself into the shoes of this young Lorraine Warren who is crushing this performance. I'm imagining myself having to go through a stillbirth and how traumatic that would be. I'm choking up, like I'm getting upset, and then I got stupid late night mop looking demon, and then we get the miracle awakening. Stuff like that is just not real to me, and I don't like the way that these movies kind of push it. That happens when babies are born sometimes. They need to be, you know, rubbed extra hard. It takes a while to like get their circulation going. They need to be warmed up on mom. So it is scary, it's terrifying, but sometimes there is a delay for the baby to start crying. I just have a real problem with movies questioning my intelligence. Anyway, I also got by the intro that it was like, this was the case that ended Ed and Lorraine Warren's career. And my mind went to a really morbid place. I was thinking, well, they're both dead in real life now. Even if Lorraine Warren's original contract was not yet expired, she's not exactly alive to sue them. So I was like, oh, are they finally going to take some liberties? Will there finally be some stakes? Will they maybe kill off Ed Warren? I was thinking, oh, maybe some of their real life skeletons are finally going to be on display in this franchise. Because if you don't know, Ed Warren was accused of having an inappropriate sexual relationship with a teenager that lasted for several decades with Lorraine's knowledge. There's a whole section on Wikipedia dedicated to it. Plenty of articles have covered it. You can just Google like Ed Warren teenage girlfriend. So not that I thought that all that would be on display in the movie. I just thought that maybe something kind of tangentially related would be involved in the case and that they would be resigning in disgrace or something. But I learned after watching the movie that it was in Lorraine's contract that they couldn't depict any affairs or inappropriate sexual relations with the Warren characters. Because of course, duh. Thinking of myself in that position though, my first thought was like, well, why would I even care? Like, I don't have those skeletons in my closet, so why would they take those liberties? You do never know though, but that's not at all what these movies are about, so I don't know, that just seems weird. I just thought maybe like that intro hyped me up to think that we would be finally getting a little bit of actual juicy tea, but no. Why would I ever believe the text on screen of a movie that claims to be based on true events? That was so stupid of me. But anyway, then they kind of set up that Judy also has this gift. They reestablish Ed's heart issues, it's his birthday, and blah blah blah. This was actually the most enjoyable time of the movie for me, and I feel like I have the least to say about it. I just liked spending that time with them. It was a fun little dynamic, Judy introducing her boyfriend and stuff, and Ed being trepidatious about him. I also enjoyed the initial setup of the family who was being haunted. Like I said, it's the 80s, the period production design is just over the top gorgeous. I mean, it's not literally over the top. I mean, it's over the top gorgeous. The actual design is very understated because everyone isn't just like in all out spandex and big poofy hair. It actually feels very realistic, you know, like the posters on the wall and the kind of music they're listening to, the glasses they're wearing, just things like that. The furniture still feeling pretty mid-century modern because they're a working class family and they're not gonna have all the updated trendy 80s stuff. Just thought that was so well done. And then also we got some decent scares with them. The daughter throwing up glass. Oh, no way, sister. That was actually good, unique, felt like I hadn't seen it before. Again, it did echo back to Oculus a little bit, but then in Act 2, it's just non-stop stupid scares and dumb side quests. There are unique locations. I loved the bridal shop mirror setup, but then the scare itself still ended up being really generic. I had seen that lady's face with her big ass smile just one too many times by that point. It wasn't scary. It was with the first jump scare, and now I can't even remember which one that was because we saw her so many times. I think it was when she was holding the little Susie doll. Anyway, then Father Gordon's whole side quest is also kind of lame to me, but they had to use him as kind of a connecting piece to get Warrens from point A to point B. I just never really cared about him in this franchise, and I wish that it was the Warrens themselves doing the investigating. I get that their arc started where they were in the place that they very much needed to be, forcefully called into action. But that character, I think that he's a lot more important in the Insidious franchise personally. But then finally, an hour and 45 minutes into this movie maybe, Ed and Lorraine are on the case. And we don't even get any really cute moments of the Warrens settling in with the family because they're too busy putting dumbass Judy up in the attic to get attacked by Annabelle again. Oh, except for some atrocious humor about waffles, like I said, Marvel setup punchline. Like, we have time for parade float-sized Annabelle, but not Patrick Wilson singing. The fan service is in the wrong place. Also, at one point, Lorraine finally drops the lore on the ghosts of the land, and it was a farm, and there were 3 of them. Okay. So the whole thing is about this demon that's been going after Judy, right? How is it at all related to these people? Like, the guy was a murderer, okay, so they're scary ghosts. In The Conjuring 2, it was like they were, Valak was using Billy as a conduit to operate in her demonic ways. In this movie, I truly failed to see the correlation. Who was the scary lady that was playing with the Susie doll? Was that the Judy demon in a wig? Was Judy's demon in drag? The demons are always like stirring up the ghosts on any given plot of land, right? It wasn't really explained in this movie. At least in Devil Made Me Do It, it was like, it's a witch. The witch is the puppeteer. And I was rooting for her. What about it? Things weren't so bad leading up to this finale. I could excuse a lot. I even got so excited when we got what was clearly an Evil Dead Rise inspired performance from Mia Tomlinson, giving Alyssa Sutherland realness. I was so here for it. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is why they didn't cast McKenna Grace. Got it. Though I wonder if she would be capable of that. But then it's over so quickly. I really wanted her to cause a lot more mayhem. I was like, take it there. But then the mirror is spinning in the air. She's, crawling. And then the completion of the arc is actually don't shut it out. Just turn around and deal with it. And then you'll see the dumbest VFX version of yourself. And then bada bing, bada boom. So lame. I thought if Judy was gonna be possessed, they were gonna take it there, but the filmmakers were like, sorry, no, you're just gonna have to watch Evil Dead Rise instead. Yep, the market research says that the normies can only handle this for about 2 minutes. Boo. Why was I British? I guess, well, Warner Bros. Is from England. But this was New Line and Atomic Monster. Was this even Warner Bros? Yes, Warner Bros. Is the distributor. Okay, so the British thing made sense. Oh mama, somebody call the Avengers. The Warrens are coming for your gig. That was pretty nuts. The whole mirror flying around thing, just a bit much. Again, I miss how understated the original was. Like, granted, you still had full, like, corporeal ghosts, but then I kind of felt like the farthest they took it with the woo-woo stuff was, okay, people are, like, flying around a room. It's not dumb VFX of turning the Warrens into demons in the mirror. It's too much. Like, relax. Then it just ends happily, and I'm like, for real? Didn't you say that this was the case that ended their career? You cannot be serious. That has the connotation that they resigned in disgrace, not that they battled a demon Fast and Furious family style. And get Annabelle out of here. Oh my god. I liked Tony. I really actually enjoyed his addition, and he battled with the family, but was ultimately pretty useless. That's why I thought that it was kind of extra funny that Ed then was like, welcome to the family, pass the keys off to him. Are we gonna get the adventures of Judy and Tony now? Will that be completely fictionalized, do you think? Or did Judy Warren carry on the torch from her mother IRL? Also, congrats to Ed for living through this film. I kind of thought that because they upped the stakes with his heart thing that he was gonna die, but no. I know that in real life he didn't die until like 2006, but come on. Though it does make sense because Patrick Wilson is way too fit for it to be believable that he was suffering from congestive heart failure. And you know what? Hands up, I did like the ending where Lorraine was like, I had a vision of our future and it was so good and blah, blah, blah. But I literally felt so duped that we did not get the family theme. This is the end of the Patrick Wilson, Vera Farmiga, Ed and Lorraine Warren adventures. Their on-screen cinematic adventures. This is it. Last one. And you're not gonna give me their special score? I know I'm stuck on this. I didn't want to end the review on this, but it's like I'm talking about the end of the movie, and the song was nice. It was a nice song. It wasn't the song. It was the wrong song. Ugh, I gotta go. I have to leave. This completely ended up turning into a rant. I gave the movie 3.5 out of 5 stars. I cannot stress this enough. But am I gonna get mad at wasted potential? Yes, ma'am. They did so much work to set up these wonderful characters and and their little journey in this film and just squandered it with Parade Float Annabelle. Anyway, if you would like to hear my theater horror story and how I nearly got into a public altercation, then please consider checking out the Patreon. I have a podcast with my dad. The episodes are typically well over an hour long, and depending on which tier you join over there, you get a bonus video every single week. It is not just limited to the podcast. I also have a second channel where I primarily talk about physical media, but I also post about my adoption. I post travel vlogs. I post spooky vlogs. I do a little bit of this, I do a little bit of that. I do a little bit of everything. More than anything though, I just hope that you enjoyed this video and that I catch you in the next one. Bye!